So you all, I'm going to tell you a story today. It is the story of Bill. Um, Bill has a company that from 2007, ever since the Great Recession, to 2017, despite the fact that they made this amazing product that had this cult following, known for its quality, made in America label, they were struggling. In fact, 10 years in a row, they barely made it every single year, just squeaking out enough of a profit to survive. And by the time that I was introduced to them, they were in a slow death spiral. Now, you need to know that this company had one big customer that it was a $5 million company at that point after its long spiral. And they had one customer that provided about 16% of their overall income, about $800,000 a year. The problem with this customer is I would call them, they were the customer from hell. No matter what, Bill's company couldn't ever get it right. They were always demanding returns. They wanted checks written because they didn't meet their specs. They were abusive to the employees. Their margins, they insisted on margins that were so low that it kept the company in a death grip. They couldn't invest. They couldn't hire new people. They couldn't do research and development for new products. They couldn't think about growing the company because this one company was so needy and took up so much of their effort and time. They were in perpetual anxiety. And one day, when Bill was telling me this story, I said to Bill, why are you putting up with this? Why are you allowing a toxic, abusive customer to own your company? Why are you allowing that customer to basically run your company? Because even though you rarely see them, they're determining your strategy, what you do, what you can't do. And Bill, what's going on? And in our conversations, I realized two things. Number one, like many leaders that I deal with, their company had what I call a corporate self-belief problem. They really didn't believe in their company. They didn't believe in their brand. They didn't believe that all those decades of building a reputation for excellence really mattered. I see a lot of school systems who struggle with their own self-belief. I see manufacturing companies who struggle with their own self-belief. I see banks, especially small community banks, that often struggle with their own self-belief. And Bill was so concerned that if this company would ever leave us, could we ever survive? And that was the second thing. Not only did they really not believe in themselves, see, not only can people struggle with self-belief, companies can struggle with self-belief. And the second thing that Bill showed me is fear of loss. He was scared to death if this customer left him, they would never be able to replace them. You see, Bill began to change, and Bill made a pivot. And here was the pivot. Bill began to realize, you know what? We survived 9/11. We survived the Great Recession. We survived the shutdown of businesses in our rural region that caused our population to be decimated. We survived all that. You know what? We could survive if we ever had to lose this customer. We could survive that. And so the first thing that happened is his view of his company, his self-belief of his own company began to increase. When your self-belief increases, your thinking starts to change. Possibilities begin to be apparent. Solutions begin to abound. I can't distorted thinking becomes replaced with I can and I will possibility thinking. And so his own self-view of his company changed, his thinking changed, then his behavior changed. How did his behavior change? It all changed on the day that the CEO once again called my friend Bill and began to abuse him, curse him out on the phone. Once again, threatened that if you all don't get your act together, we're out of here. He was always threatening to leave. For some reason, he would never leave. And Bill went, you know what? I'll tell you what. You come and you get your machines off our floor. We're not going to be abused anymore. We tried to talk to you about it. You think that we can't do without you. We can't. And so we're ending the relationship. And all of a sudden, everything changed. Oh, please don't let us go. We need you, please. And even if you let us go, will you at least make more product for a period of time? You see, they were dealing with what I call a bully customer. And he finally stood up and he began to set boundaries. And he said, you know what? You go and we're going to grow. So the behavior changed. They began to set boundaries. They began to operate by values that were no longer just a plaque on the wall. They actually were determinants of who we do business with and who we don't, and how we do business and who we are. Oh, from 2017 to 2020, their profitability increased exponentially by 30 times. 30 times. Now, it just wasn't because that one client they said goodbye. We don't want a toxic vendor anymore. We don't want a toxic relationship here anymore. But what it did is it freed up their labor pool to begin to make new things. It freed up so much of their emotional bandwidth was being spent in dealing with these conflicts, these perpetual crises that was going on, the firefighting that we kept having to do with them, that we found that we didn't have any bandwidth for possibility, for research and development. And the dominoes, the positive dominoes just started falling. I want to ask you a question. How many of you can identify with Bill? Hands all over. We all have those folks in our world, either personally and or professionally, who are running their lives because our lives and our companies because we're letting them. And so what I want to talk about today is this. We teach organizations all over the world that if you want to thrive as a company, you want to go from barely being able to survive to what Bill experienced, that isn't it wonderful to thrive? They had to start showing courageous leadership. You see, the problem wasn't that other client. The problem was themselves. And so what Bill did is he began to understand that I need to start setting boundaries, and I need to start saying no to my toxic customers that are high maintenance, that they want it all, they want it now, they want it cheap, they're into win-loss, they don't care if you survive. It's always a one-off transactional thing. And if there's a breakdown in some of the product or something that goes wrong, they're always right. They're not reasonable. And folks, what I know is most companies think that you have to do business with them. Let me say this: the customer is not always right. What is right are your values. You see, the kind of toxic customer that I'm talking about, think about your values that you have on your wall. Think about that. Those customers almost always are violating at least one or two or three of your values that you have said that are non-negotiable. And I've said to many of our partner clients, look, trust your values. When you have to make a hard decision that's going to lead to short-term consequences and fallout, trust your values to make the decision for you. And stay within your values. And so let me talk to you what partners look like. Partners are not one-off. They want a long-term relationship. There's transparency. There's honesty in the relationship. There's high trust that has been built. When something goes wrong, you don't fear that they're going to walk out the door. You know that they're going to come, they're going to sit down in front of you and say, look, how do we work this out? They're always wanting win-win relationships. And you all, those partner relationships will typically take up about 20% of your entire client list. And they will create 80% of your profitability. 80% of your profitability. And so I call them your ones and twos. Now, by the way, this also applies in your personal life. In your personal life, those 1 and 2 individuals are what I call heart friends, H-E-A-R-T. Those are the people who love you no matter what. Those are the people in your personal life who know your warts. They don't judge you. You've been through thick and thin. You've had conflicts that you've weathered, and you've handled those conflicts. And not only has trust not been broken, trust has accelerated over the years. Those are the people who want what is best. Those are the people who will always be honest with you. If you're making a fool out of yourself and you don't know it, those are the ones who will lovingly hold you accountable. Those are the folks that I call your funeral folks. You can count on, no matter what, they'll always be, they will be at your funeral someday, no matter what. You see, those are the people who bring joy to our lives. Oh, the partners are those people who make business fun. They are the reason why they make it worth coming to work. The experience of dealing with them day in and day out is just, it's easy. It's delightful. You know what I'm talking about, you guys? Those are your ones and twos. Now, don't worry about the 3 through 7s. The 3 through 7s in business are what I call healthy vendor relationships. They're one-offs. They're transactional, but they're not toxic. They're easy to do business with. They're not going to make up a substantial amount of your profit, but you still need them. And they'll always take up about somewhere around 70 to 80% of your client pool. If you're setting boundaries and saying no to bully clients. If you don't set boundaries and say no to those bully clients, they will not give you the bandwidth to build partnerships. And you will be in constant firefighting. And so there are people in our lives that make us better. There are people in our lives that push us to grow. There are people in our lives that no matter what, in the middle of the night, that if we have to make a phone call, they'll be there. Those are what I call heart friends. Now, on the personal side, the 8, 9s, and 10s, the 3 through 7s are those people in your life that they just come and go because of the rhythm of life. They're not hard to deal with. They don't drain you of life. They're part of the rhythm and order of your life. Those are 3 through 7s. Those are the majority of your relationships. But then you have 8 through 10. And I call them your life suckers. They suck the life out of you. You know people like that? They're always in crisis. They're always doing what I call proof testing. Setting up unreasonable demands and expectations to see if you'll jump through the hoop, to prove that somehow they matter because of the unreasonable things that you put up with. Those are the folks that are needy, that are high maintenance, that they're the ones that no matter if you have 10 commitments that you have made to other people, they're the ones that will always feel it's okay to jump the line to come to the first. You know those folks? Gang, in most people's lives, they take up to 60% of your emotional bandwidth in your life. 60%. If you don't have the leadership ability to set boundaries and set the expectations for that relationship. Oh, over in corporate life, I call them toxic vendors. And those are the folks that if you're not dealing with their inappropriate behavior, if you're not having those awkward but difficult conversations, they'll take up 60% of your bandwidth. And that's what we call a firefighting organization. And so here's what we do. When I'm working with a company, I'll say to them, look, you got too much drama. So let's just start clearing out the 8s through 10s. Now, sometimes you just don't clear them out overnight. Sometimes you've got to have a plan in place to begin to ease them out. But who are they? And I'll never forget, I was working with a company in Michigan that made automobile parts. And there was one customer that provided 1% of their profitability, 1%. And yet when I asked them to do an analysis, they were finding on the time spent, they were spending 30% of their time dealing with the demands. This executive team of this company would fly in every other Thursday for a 3-hour berating meeting about how you all need to do better. I said, gang, why don't you identify your 8, 9s, and 10s and begin to have a plan to say goodbye? And you all, they went from 80 to $100 million in profitability in 2 years. You know why? Guess what 1s and 2s do? They become raving fans. They become your sales force. They begin to refer. And by the way, they don't write in, hey, I want a 5% override on this. They do it because they care about you. They want you to succeed. Oh, guess what kind of referrals that 8, 9s, and 10s will give you? They will give you other 8, 9s, and 10s. Hey, there's a company X over here in Green Bay or over here in Phoenix that puts up with my stuff. And they They will meet my demands. And I can squeeze blood out of a turnip with them. You need to go do business with them. If you build relationships with partners, the partners will keep developing through your partners. Gang, as simple as that sounds, it's all about simplicity. Have you filled your client list with a bunch of 8, 9s, and 10s, high maintenance, high need, high demand? But if they leave, are we going to be able to replace them? There is such a thing called addition by subtraction. And you all, if you believe in yourself, you got to say, you know, our team can weather this. We may have to make some adjustments. We may have to go to the left instead of the right. But you guys, why would we want to continue to put up with this perpetual headache that's keeping us from reaching out to new possibilities? And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. Move from a business model that seeks anybody that comes in the door. No, gang, let your values make your decision for you of who you do business with and who you don't. So there are a bunch of school administrators on this screen today. You all also have 8, 9, and 10 parents. The parents from hell, whose little Johnny never makes a mistake. And they're always threatening, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm gonna write a blog on Facebook. And you live in fear of upsetting them. Let them write the daggone blog. Reasonable people will know the truth, guys. Do the right thing for the right reason, regardless of the consequences. And things have a way of working out. So, Abby, Abby's sitting here, so we don't know exactly what chats have come up. Any comments, any questions? What's your response, guys? Don't be quiet on me. You guys can talk.
Dr. Fred, I like to call it the PETA tax. Often I found a really good way to get rid of my least favorite clients is by to raise how much I charge them. It's the pain in the butt tax, or whatever other acronym you might prefer.
Hey, it works, doesn't it, Tara? Tara, I'm wondering, when we were working together several years ago, why you kept raising our fee. Now I am now aware of why you were raising our fee. And it was because Abby is very difficult to work with. I understand. Tara, that's awesome. Who else, you guys? Questions? Are you struggling with someone like that in your private life or your personal life? And you want to know, how do I deal with it? Come on and talk to me. This is your opportunity. Where do I find the chat?
Dr. Fred,
yeah,
I was just going to say that as in my role, I lead people who have customer relationships, and I have found that I need to help them identify the 8, 9s, and 10s, and that's a role as a leader that I need to help play.
Greg, how do you being a senior executive of a very successful banking operation, I mean, can you identify with what I've been talking about?
Absolutely. The customer thing rings totally true. I've had it in my personal life when I was a financial advisor, and getting rid of an 8, 9, or 10 miraculously freed up 30% of my brain power for the next year.
Yeah.
I've seen it even in terms of a division of the company or a geographic location, and realizing that, wait a minute, we just keep pouring all this energy into this thing and it's never getting beyond an 8, 9, or 10. Maybe we need to make a change that way. So the principle applies in so many ways.
You bet. Thank you, Greg. And you all, I want to make clear, we're not putting a value judgment about that person. We're not saying that person's value is a 10 as a human being. We're talking about the impact upon your business. upon your goals, upon your objectives. They're just not a fit. There are some customers that are just not a fit. And that's okay. If you try to be all things to everyone, you're going to be ending up being nothing to everyone, and you're going to lose yourself in the process. In working with true world-class companies, from my days in working with Baldrige level companies that were the world class of the world class, one of the things that I saw as a young leader with every one of those companies, no matter what their field was, they made decisions based upon who they were, what their sweet spot was, what brought them the most joy, what brought them the most impact, what was most within their skill set. And they made decisions of yes or no based upon those internal principles of values and strategic goals. And they weren't afraid to say no. And they learned how to say no to lesser no's so that they could say yes to the greater yeses. I'll never forget the classic story of Herb Kelleher, who started Southwest Airlines, most profitable airlines for decades. And one time he got a nasty letter from a business passenger and said, "You guys need to get your act together. You all dress weird. Those little lays that you have around and those Hawaiian shirts need to go. You guys need to be more like United or American or Delta and have those starch blue jackets. And we need to have business class, and we need to be the first on the plane, and we need special treatment. And if you don't give it to us, if you don't give it to me, I'm never going to fly you again." And I loved his response. "Dear madam, go fly American, because we are a travel airline. We're not a business airline." You see, he made a decision that they were going to be true to themselves. The great companies are companies who are true to themselves, and they operate within that sweet spot. And they're willing to let people walk in order to do that. And the irony is more people end up walking in than those who walked out. Anybody else? We got a couple chats here.
So a couple folks are saying, they feel like they might be an 8, 9, or 10. And how do they identify that, and how can they change?
Wow. First of all, if you have the courage to identify that you're an 8, 9, and 10, you're probably not an 8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10s think everyone else is screwed up except them. They're classic narcissists. It's always about everybody else. Why are there so many people going like this? And I am not talking about your mother-in-law. I just want you to know that right now. And so you all, first of all, you have to ask yourself, in order to become a 1 and 2, here's where it starts. You've heard me, many of you have heard me say, and our research has shown that the average leader in America has a self-belief level of how much? 2.7. 2.7. That if I want to become in that world of being a 1 and 2 in other people's lives, guys, I've got to start looking at myself first. And I've got to begin to go, you know what? I am of value. I am enough. I am worthwhile. Nothing changes in your life. Your results won't change. Your behavior that leads to those results won't change. And your thinking that says, I need to behave differently, won't change until your view of yourself begins to change. I did a TED Talk a couple years ago, and I said, look, the number one issue in leaders' lives that keeps them from meeting their potential is not experience, is not technical knowledge. It is their own self-view. It takes as much energy to tell yourself that you're not enough as it does to tell yourself you are enough. So you might as well expend the energy in a positive way. So there is no easy, simple answer to this 1 and 2 thing. It just requires a relentless commitment to look at yourself and to surround yourself with people who believe in you and who will tell you the truth because they believe in you, and they'll hold you accountable, and they'll sharpen you, and they'll be with you, and they won't shame you, they'll teach you, and they'll mentor you. If you don't have people around you in that, you need to think about that. Because people who are growing attract people who have grown. People who are growing attract people who have grown. That's the law of attraction. And so first is, do you feel I need to change? I need to get better. I need to maximize my impact. That commitment to yourself is the beginning of the journey. Who else?
We had a couple people mention boundaries as a tool here. And let me see here, I'll read this one. As a supervisor, I have experienced this with employees as well. They do not have issues that would result in a justified termination, but are not performing at the level they should. They can demand so much of my time that it results in me not being able to complete my task, and it is somewhat of a domino effect of how it affects the staff and customers.
Okay. So we're working with school districts around the country. And I'm just going to say it. I don't have to be politically correct here. Many school districts have policies that cater to the lowest common denominator. And by golly, what do you mean I need to raise my standards in the classroom? What do you mean I need to show passion towards my kids? What do you mean I have to start being a team player with the other teachers? What do you mean I have to start looking at this school not just as my class and your class, but we're all on the same team? What do you mean I have to do that? You all, unfortunately, there's often policies and procedures in place that you can't get rid of them if you try. But at least you can start setting boundaries. At least you can start putting issues on the table. At least you can start creating a fence that limits their toxicity and their influence. At least start having the conversations, but do it with, I call it KDR, kind, direct, respectful, but have the daggone conversation. By the way, you can tell that I'm from the South, like my buddy Paul Metler. We're from the South. We talk in real English, unlike Greg, who doesn't have any kind of an accent. I don't know what country he's from. Anybody else? We got 8 minutes. Is this helpful, you guys? I'm just talking to you now. Cindy Van.
Yeah, I guess if I could add in, are you copying me?
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Yep, Sheriff Josky over here in Kewaunee County. You know, I really appreciate your comment there in regards to really being able to know who you are and stay true to it. I think in law enforcement, you know, we have to really strive at this because we are facing an onslaught from so many different directions. And, you know, we really have to be able to look inward and say, okay, let's get back to our fundamentals, our mission statement. Why do we do what we do, regardless of the winds of change and the you know, the political changes? We have to stay that constant. And that's usually my spiel out to the community is we've always been here. But it doesn't mean that we can't always be reevaluating, making sure that, you know, we're doing that self-analysis and looking inward to make sure that we are being that servant that we've sworn to be. But at the same time, as you said, we've got to be willing to push back and say, you know, these are the fundamentals. These are the things we stand for. And this is why we stand for them. And we are not negotiable. We are not something that can be, you know, malleable or moved just because of a political wind. And so again, law enforcement really is in an interesting place. So I truly appreciate your comment about really always understanding and knowing what are you about, why you do what you do, and who are you.
You know what? By the way, our sheriff from Kewaunee County, thank you for being on with us today. You know, my brother has been in law enforcement for 35 years. He was a chief police in a town in Indiana, and he's also the head of the National Canine Police Association. He trains dogs for the CIA, for foreign governments, and so forth. And he asked me to speak a couple years ago, and there were about 600 law enforcement people in the audience. And I'll never forget, Matt, what I said to them. I said, you know, you guys, no matter what you do, you can never win. If you're paying attention to the wrong audience for your value has to come from within yourself, because you're in the kind of profession that you're going to do something that makes 500 happy, and you're going to tick off 500 every day. But it is not a can't win situation, because as long as you know you're being true to your purpose and true to yourself, and you're operating with integrity and you're operating with kindness and respect, you can't lose. And I'll never forget, I just shared that basic message, and I said to these guys, you guys, you're enough, and we thank you. And I didn't think it was a big deal. I got email after email after email. My brother said to me later, he said to me later, Sheriff Clark from Milwaukee was on the same dais with me that night. And he said, this guy is the best speaker I've ever heard. Well, I agree with that, by the way, in all humility. But he said, I said, Mike, I don't get it. He said, Fred, they just needed to know that someone believed in them. That's what 1 and 2 leaders do. 1 and 2 leaders pour themselves into other people and just show, I care about you, I believe in you. And by the way, if your people don't think you care about them, you're never going to lead them, because they will not buy into your philosophies and your ideas and your training and your experience. They will not buy into that if they don't know that you buy into them first. And that's why leadership is so hard today, because it used to be all you had to do was to have a title. That's all you had. Today, you got to know yourself, because you can't give out respect from a heart that is full of disrespect. Leadership starts with you and your ability to care for yourself. Matt, thank you for joining us today. Gary Davies, my friend from South Africa and Detroit, which is another foreign country.
Well, I just wanted to correct your self-deception, because you do not speak English. I just wanted to share a story. When I first came to the US, I was president of for North America for a European company, and a very large company, which you would know if I told you the name, which I won't, was continuously pushing this particular company on price. It was the biggest customer we had. There was 16% revenue, and they continuously threatened this company that they were going to give the business to somebody else. So my very first meeting, they started this again. I got up and I walked out, and they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're done. We don't need you, and we're going to use our capacity for other things." 12 months later, they were back at the price we needed.
It works, doesn't it, Gary?
It does. Just got to have the courage to do it.
Hey, you all, what you tolerate, you reward. What you let happen, you bless. If you've got toxic employees around you, sorry, but you're the problem, because somehow they feel comfortable being there. It starts with you. So you all, I want to say in ending, our team here at Initiative One, we are so grateful to each of you. Many of you are with us for the first time. And just, we want you to know that we have a passion to pour ourselves into you. The first time we did this 5 years ago, we had 16 people. Today we have over 300 screens, and we have a bunch of folks and companies that are listening. It is an honor to pour yourself into other people. That's what life is all about. And I thank you that here you are at 7:30 or 8:30, or in California, it's 6:30 on a Friday morning, that you care enough about people and your leadership to impact them, that you're here. And I just want you to know how much we appreciate you. By the way, we're starting construction here in the next month on our new event center, because we've outgrown, when we had, before COVID, our building looked like we were trying to pack people in with a shoehorn. And we're going to have more space for people to come and be here in person. But gang, check us out. If we can help you further, we'd be open to conversation. I've got a great team here, and we're here for you. Leave your chat with us. I love reading your chats. I'm very insecure, and I need other people's affirmation and praise as the basis of my identity. I'm only half kidding about that, because I think we're all like that. And but I just want you to know, thank you. Hey, Greg, anything from you before we close it up?
No, just an encouragement. You're spot on. I've seen it in every area. I've had friends that have pointed out to me where I was blind to the 8, 9, and 10. So just do it for those around you and help them to see that.
Thank you, buddy. Mr. Lazakovich, why don't you take us home?
Okay. Well, again, it's great to see everybody. I'm impressed by the level of commitment that you all share. For the record, Fred, I've heard from some fellow Arizonans that we do speak correctly. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
You know, I spent 20 years in Scottsdale.
I know it.
I never learned the language.
Well, I'll say this. I'm new to iOne. I've in a full-time capacity. I've been working with iOne for over a year now. And just by way of sharing this good news with you all, that it does make a difference in your life, and it does make a difference in your organizations. And I know that a lot of you agree, because I've worked with a number of you on this screen already. And so if you want to know more, if you're curious to dig deeper, please reach out to us. It's exciting to be the representative here on the East Coast. And so if you know folks out this way who could use a little iOne in their lives, please reach out to me or put something in the chat. And we'd like to continue the conversation just to get to know you all, because we believe that when we work together, when we pour into one another, we not only make ourselves better and our organizations better, and this is what catches me every time, we make our communities better and we make our world better. And that's worth doing, folks. So thank you. Thank you for listening this morning. Thank you, Dr. Fred, for sharing with us. And let's keep finding those 1s and 2s, folks.
Thank you, guys. Be a 1 and 2. Talk to you soon.